The person who ghosted you almost never disappeared because you didn't matter. They disappeared because of what the goodbye would make them feel. No fight, no warning, just silence, and a conversation that ends mid-sentence, forever. In the next few minutes, you'll see exactly what happens inside the mind of a ghoster and how to close a door they left open. First, let's see if this is you. You check your phone more than you'd like to admit. Not for everyone, for one specific name. You reread the last conversation. It looks normal, friendly even. That's what makes it worse. You've written 10 versions of a message you'll never send. Casual, funny, angry, deleted, deleted, deleted. You replay the last meeting like detectives replay security footage, looking for the exact frame where it went wrong. And you've built theories. They're busy. Their phone broke. Something happened to them. Anything but the obvious. Friends say they're lost and just move on. You nod. It doesn't help because your brain isn't grieving a person. It's stuck on a question, an open loop. What did I do? And open loops are the one thing your mind cannot put down. Here's the first truth. You're not weak for obsessing. Your brain treats an unexplained ending like an unsolved threat. If this feels familiar, stay with me, because what looks like rejection is usually something much stranger. Ghosting feels personal, like a verdict on your worth. But study the ghoster's mind and the story flips completely. Let's open up the 5 layers of why people vanish, starting with the one emotion every ghoster is running from. Layer 1. Ghosting is almost never about you. It's an escape hatch from one specific feeling, confrontation. A breakup conversation, even a tiny one, even, hey, I'm not feeling this, requires sitting inside someone else's disappointment. For some people, that's uncomfortable. For the classic ghoster, it feels unbearable, so their brain looks for an exit. And modern life handed them the perfect one. To disappear, they don't have to do anything. They just have to stop. No conversation to survive. No tears to watch. No anger to absorb. Silence does all the dirty work for them. Psychologists call this avoidance coping. The rule is simple. Whatever feels bad now, escape it now. The future costs are someone else's problem. Here's the twist most people miss. In the ghoster's head, silence often feels kinder than honesty. They tell themselves, a breakup text would hurt them. If I just fade away, maybe they'll get the hint. No drama for anyone. It's a lie, of course, but it's a comfortable lie. It lets them feel gentle while doing one of the most painful things you can do to a person. Because here's what the escape hatch actually does. Your pain doesn't disappear with them. It just lands entirely on you. They skipped one awkward conversation. You inherited weeks, sometimes months, of wondering what you did. Notice something important. Avoiding the conversation didn't make the breakup smaller. It made it bigger, just invisible, and only on your side. And the more they avoid, the easier avoiding becomes. The first ghost is hard. The 5th is routine. That's why serial ghosters exist, not monsters. Just people whose escape hatch works so well they stopped looking for the door. But this raises a deeper question. Why can some people say a hard goodbye while others physically can't? The answer was written years before they met you. Layer 2. The attachment system. Layer 2. Psychologists describe attachment styles, patterns for how close we let people get, learned in childhood. If your feelings were met with comfort growing up, closeness feels safe. You can say hard things and trust the relationship survives. But some children learn the opposite. Big feelings push people away. Needs are an inconvenience. Best to handle everything alone. They grow into what researchers call avoidant attachment. Often successful, often charming, independent to a fault. And intimacy for them has a hidden timer. The closer you get, the louder an internal alarm rings. Too close, too risky. Here's where ghosting starts to make terrible sense. Research finds people with avoidant attachment are far more likely to end relationships by disappearing. Why is that? Because a goodbye conversation is maximum intimacy, raw feelings, tears, questions they can't answer, everything their system is built to avoid. To you, the silence felt like they didn't care. Inside them, it was often the opposite. caring was exactly the problem. The connection got real enough to require real emotional work. And real emotional work is the one currency they don't carry. Some even ghost at the moment things get better. The weekend went too well. The conversation went too deep. Alarm, exit. That's why ghosting so often comes without warning. You weren't watching a relationship fail. You were watching someone hit their intimacy ceiling. And a ceiling you can't see looks exactly like a person who vanished for no reason. Let me be clear, this explains ghosting. It doesn't excuse it. Plenty of avoidant people learn to say hard goodbyes, but it changes the meaning of the silence. The silence was never a measurement of your worth. It was a measurement of their capacity, of how much realness their system could hold before the escape hatch opened. Read that again if you need to. You didn't fail a test. You exceeded a limit. Which brings us to the strangest part of this whole story. The reason ghosting hurts more than a brutal, honest rejection. It's not about love at all. It's about a machine in your head that's been running since birth. And what happens when it jams. Layer 3. Your brain has a filing system. Every experience gets processed, labeled, and stored. Finished business goes in the archive. But an experience can only be filed when it has an ending, a shape, a reason. We fought. We wanted different things. It ended. Filed. Ghosting hands your brain a story with the last page torn out. And the brain has a strict rule about unfinished stories. They stay open. Psychologists call it the Zeigarnik effect. Unfinished tasks occupy the mind far more than completed ones. Here's the surprise. Your brain processes social rejection with some of the same circuitry as physical pain. Rejection literally registers like injury. Now combine the two. Ghosting is pain, with no explanation attached. An injury your mind can't locate, so your mind does the only thing it can. It searches. It replays the footage. It drafts theories at 2 a.m. It checks the phone. That obsessive loop you're ashamed of. It isn't weakness. It's a healthy brain doing its job on an impossible case. This is why a clean, honest rejection, even a harsh one, hurts less over time than a vanishing. It's over because X. That stings, then heals. It's over because that stays open like a browser tab. Your mind refreshes forever. And there's a crueler layer. With no explanation from them, your brain writes its own. And it always drafts the worst one. I was too much. I was boring. I was easy to leave. The silence becomes a mirror. That only shows your flaws. Hear this clearly. That story was written by your pain, not by the facts. The only fact you have is that they couldn't do goodbyes. Meanwhile, ambiguity does one more cruel trick. It keeps hope alive. Maybe they'll text. Maybe it's not over, so you can't even grieve properly, because part of you is still waiting at a door that quietly stopped existing. Researchers who study breakups keep finding the same thing. People recover from rejection. What wrecks them is uncertainty. Ghosting isn't just a breakup without words. It's a breakup without an ending, and endings are what humans heal with. Which raises the question almost nobody asks. If silence is this destructive, what does it cost the one who chose it? Layer 4. Because the ghost doesn't walk away free, not even close. Start with what ghosting trains the ghoster to become. Every avoided conversation is a repetition, a workout for the wrong muscle. They get better and better at escaping, and weaker at the one skill every lasting relationship requires. Hard conversations. So, their relationships develop a pattern. Great beginnings, real warmth. Then, at the first heavy moment, gone. Many ghosters carry quiet guilt for years. They'll see a name, a photo, a street, and feel that unfinished thing twitch. Some eventually send the famous resurrection text. Hey, stranger. Months of silence. Then 2 words, as if nothing happened. That text is rarely about you. It's their open loop. Ghosting, it turns out, leaves both people with an unfiled ending. And the cost on your side goes beyond one lost person. Unexplained endings quietly rewrite your settings. Trust drops not just in them, in your own judgment. I didn't see it coming becomes I can't trust what I see. So, in the next connection, a small delay in replying isn't a delay. It's a siren. You brace for vanishing before anything vanishes. Some people start ghosting first, leaving before they can be left. And so, the wound gets passed on like a chain letter. One avoided conversation multiplied across millions of people, slowly teaching everyone the same lesson. Endings are optional. But here's what you should sit with. The damage to you isn't proof you were broken. It's proof you were open. Only people capable of real attachment can be hurt this way. The wound is, strangely, a certificate of your capacity to connect. Still, a certificate doesn't close the loop. The question that brought you here remains. How do you finish a story when the other author left? That's the turn, because closure was never something they had to give you. It's something you can build. Layer 5. The way out. First, understand what closure actually is. It was never their explanation. It's your brain marking a file. Complete. And here's the liberating secret. The brain accepts a verdict. It writes itself. You don't need their reason. You need an ending. Step 1. Stop the investigation. Officially, the case isn't unsolved anymore. The verdict is in. They chose silence. That is the answer. Whatever their inner reason, fear, avoidance, immaturity, the action was the same. A person who ends things with silence has told you everything about their capacity. Step 2. Write the last page yourself. Literally, a letter you'll never send. This ended because you couldn't end it. I'm closing it for both of us. It sounds too simple, but remember the filing system. The brain doesn't need the true ending. It needs a coherent one. Give it one. Step 3. Translate the event. Not I was rejected, but I was given accurate information about their limits, earlier than most people get it. Step 4. Forgive your detective. The replaying, the checking, the 2 a.m. theories. That was your mind protecting you. Thank it. Then give it the verdict so it can rest. Step 5. Don't let their silence write your next relationship. Notice when an unanswered message triggers the old siren, and name it. That's the old wound, not this person. And if you're the one who ghosts, one sentence is enough. I'm sorry. I don't feel this going forward. I wish you well. 11 seconds of discomfort. That's the entire price of leaving someone with an ending instead of a question mark. Every time you choose those 11 seconds, you're not just being kind to them. You're training yourself out of the escape hatch. Because here's the final reframe. The goodbye conversation isn't the failure of a connection. It's the last act of respect it deserves. Endings are a skill. The people who master it don't just leave cleaner, they love better. Nothing pending, nothing haunting. And the person reading this who's still waiting for a text. You already have your ending. It just didn't come in words. So let's return to that open tab in your mind. The name, the silence, the question you've been carrying. The question was never, what did I do? The real question is the one only you can answer. The closure you've been waiting for. Could you give it to yourself today? Maybe healing doesn't begin when they finally explain. Maybe it begins the moment you stop needing them to. If someone vanished on you, leave one word in the comments. Closed. Consider it your signature on the last page. And if this gave you an ending you needed, subscribe. We draw out the hidden side of the mind here, one stick figure at a time. Until next time, be the person who says goodbye, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard.